I want to hear about your dog getting skunked.
Skunks. Oh my God. Run outside. And because I see him going after him, I'm like, Pete. Sheba, poor recall. Not listening. Teach recall to your dogs. Better than me. I didn't expect a noxious green cloud like in a cartoon or anything like that, you know? But then the cloud hit me. During my Googling, it said, do not use tomato.
I wanted to touch on weight cutting and weigh-in things that happen recently. Michael Bisping's like, I never have sympathy for these guys. You have one job, show up on weight. That's it. You're a professional fighter. Boom! And the guy face plants.
What if instead of monitoring before, they monitor weight gain after?
That is something that exists.
Fuck! God damn.
No,
I'm all over here thinking, I'm being like, oh, this is game changer.
No, and I think it's a great solution. Much more depressing note, I did want to talk about what's going on in jiu-jitsu right now. I have a couple of personal kind of stories and where I've seen like the bad people in the sport. I'm concerned about the sport, but I know that there are a lot of good people that care about the sport like I do, and I hope soon that we start having some significant changes.
Easy there.
It's a little aggro.
Oh yeah. Talk to me.
Welcome back to Game Plan the podcast.
Fuck yeah.
We're rolling solo today. No guest. So
Oh yeah.
it's just me and Juice. We have some cool guests lined up, but scheduling conflicts do happen. So we were going to take this time to go over some questions we had from our Instagram and then also talk about the recent scandals and stuff like that in jiu-jitsu.
Rough, man.
Yeah. But first, I want to hear about your dog getting skunked. Let's get conversation on the pod about skunks.
Skunks. Oh my God. So I was doing my morning shit, right? Having a good time. And Pete, the sesame Shiba. Are we good? The sesame Shiba, brown one. He's like 2. He goes outside and, man, like recall with Shibas is like notoriously bad, you know? So that boy just kind of don't be listening, unfortunately. There was a time where we had to put a drag leash on him. Are you familiar with the drag leash?
No.
Drag leash is a fucking leash or like a rope or anything that you tie onto your dog so that when you can't get him, you can go outside and he has something to like step on.
And it's like the
like
length
help.
of your whole backyard, so you can still go around and everything.
Yeah. And he's just literally dragging it around. Maybe not the whole backyard. We just have like a normal leash or whatever on him. But I let him out because I had faith, but I shouldn't have. So he didn't have a drag leash on. So I seen him just like hanging out, chilling in the backyard. And then I see like, it looked like an anteater or something,
Yeah.
you know? And it was just like walking along the back fence. I was like, the fuck is that? I thought it was like maybe a cat or something. I was like, what the fuck is that? And I look at it and I'm like, oh shit. I see the black, I see the white tail. I'm like, oh fuck. And I'm looking to see where Pete is. And at this point, Pete doesn't see it. He's like fucking off with some, like barking at people outside the fence or some shit like that. And then I see him notice it and his like ears perk up. And he starts straight, like beeline straight to the skunk. I'm like, oh fuck. Meanwhile, I'm inside the house drinking my coffee, finish my oatmeal, and I have my fucking, you see my pink hoodie blanket?
No.
You haven't seen this?
It's a Snuggie.
Basically, it's a fucking fly ass Snuggie.
Okay.
It's so cozy. But I'm in this thing and I'm like, no. So I go and I take it off because I don't want that shit to get skunked. So I take it off, throw it down, and I run outside. And because I see him going after him, I'm like, Pete, Sheba, poor recall, not listening. Teach recall to your dogs. Better than me. It was not listening. And he's like going up and like posturing, like trying to play with.
And it was on the fence?
No, it was just like walking on the ground along the fence.
Oh, okay. Fully in the backyard.
Straight up in the backyard.
Okay.
So I'm like, fuck. And like I'm watching and I didn't want to like get between, you know, because like and especially after hearing you and our time at the ranch, you know, I didn't want to do that. So I'm just trying to call my fucking dog. I'm like, Pete. Not working. He's just like fucking basically playing with it, you know. They don't actually like make contact or anything. And I'm like, this happens for honestly not that long, you know, maybe like, I don't know, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, you know, but it felt like 30 minutes or something. But they don't make contact. And then I don't like smell anything. I never seen the skunk like turn around and like fucking spray or anything like that. But Pete starts like sneezing, you know, he's like, you know, and I'm like, but I didn't see any spray, you know, and I didn't expect anything to be like a noxious green cloud like in a cartoon or anything like that, you know. I didn't expect that, but I like literally didn't see when it could have happened. So I was worried that maybe they actually did get close and like maybe like swiped them or like bit them or, you know, something like that. But then the cloud hit me, dude, and I was like it got in my mouth. I was like, oh God, you know. And I'm trying to get Pete, still not happening. But then the skunk goes. We have I don't know if you've seen our backyard, but we have like the main yard, and then we have like our little like garden,
Right,
kind of area, and we have that fenced off. So there's like a fence, and there's like the main part of the fence is like cattle panel, you know. So it's like decently like large squares, and I thought the skunk was like huge, but maybe it was just big and posturing, you know, and like fluffing out.
Yeah, they're super fluffy.
Yeah. But whenever it retreated, it just hopped straight through one of those squares. And it's like, not big. I'm like, oh, fuck. But I was glad because Pete wasn't going to jump up over there. He does jump up on one corner, but we like did some shit to prevent that. So at this point, skunk's gone. The air is green and it's disgusting. So I'm like, everything's fine. I'm gonna go inside. It was nasty. And then Pete is just like rubbing his face into the ground. You know what I mean? Just like for like 5-10 minutes. I'm like, well, fuck. I don't know what to do. This is my first like legitimate run-in with this skunking happening. You know? So I'm like, fuck. So I go inside where the air quality is nicer. And I don't know, I go on my phone and Google like how to take care of a skunk, you know, like how to get rid of skunk smelling dog. I found that you are not supposed to wet them with water, like don't spray them down. But I was supposed to get like a quart of hydrogen peroxide.
Okay.
Like a quarter cup of baking soda and some dish soap. And do one of these. And then just kind of like massage it into the dog and onto their fur and shit. Let it sit and then rinse it off. I didn't have hydrogen peroxide. I left him, went and got it, came back, did the whole thing, mixed it up, did all of that, and it kind of worked. It worked pretty good. It was really nice. So there might be like a little bit, you know, but for the most part, it was good because at first I couldn't really like, I couldn't get Pete because he was like still red zone and like play mode and fucking run around everywhere.
Yeah.
So I couldn't actually get him to make sure that he actually got sprayed. But I mean, looking at him and seeing how he's reacting, dude, like right in the face.
And when you were putting all this stuff on him, did he smell like a skunk?
Yeah. So I left, came back, and whenever we came back, he was like, Daddy's home, you know. So I was able to get him, and then I smelled his face. I was like, it was bad, man. It was rich, pungent.
Yeah, I mean, Googling it seems smart because the only thing I've ever heard is people taking like
Tomato.
baths in tomato. Yeah, which I'm sure is like an acidity thing where like the acid helps break it down or whatever.
And apparently, during my Googling, it said do not use tomato. So I think it's like a
Urban legend myth kind of thing.
I guess like that they said it just like kind of covers it up temporarily, you know. Whereas the peroxide, baking soda, like I don't know, breaks it down.
Yeah.
Fucking I don't know, phenols.
Yeah, what a sick defense mechanism, dude.
Sick, absolutely sick. Yeah, it's fucking nasty. That shit was gross, man.
Did you put him in like a kennel when you left the house?
Yeah.
So I wonder what the house will smell like when you get home once he's kind of sat in there for a little while.
Yeah, and Megan is like has a super sensitive nose, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll find out. Like I'm sure even while I was there, I may have gotten like used to whatever was left, like whatever residuals, you know, were there. That's why whenever I came in here today, I was like, I smell like shit.
No,
I smell like shit.
you're good.
Cool. You know I pride myself on my hygiene.
Yeah, for sure. I'm imagining
Stress me out,
I'm
bro.
imagining that like he may have gotten sprayed a little bit, but like it doesn't sound like he got like the full blast. Cause I'm pretty sure when they like really defend themselves with it, they like go up on their front legs, turn around and lift their back end up and like
okay.
like green cloud, spray that shit right at you. So I imagine if he got fully sprayed, it would have taken a lot more cleaning for you to get to where it's like manageable. And he probably would have been freaking out a lot worse too.
Okay.
So maybe he just got like grazed.
Yeah. Yeah, flesh wound. That was rough, man. I don't know if anybody knows how to keep skunks away from their spots, please let me know, because that was fucking rough.
Well, before I go into the recent scandals and kind of drama in the jiu-jitsu community, I wanted to touch on some weight cutting and weigh-in things that happened recently, and it was on the same weekend. So the first one was Cameron Smotherman passes out at UFC 324 weigh-ins.
I've seen a clip of that, yeah.
And the funniest part about it, it's not funny having the guy pass out. I've seen guys passing out at weigh-ins. It's actually really scary because you know that like the state their body's in, they're probably like close to kidney failure or whatever else. I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know exactly what's going to happen. But I've seen guys pass out, and I've done bad weight cuts myself and gotten to where I felt like where I was pretty close to that. But simultaneous to this guy face planting on the stage, Michael Bisping's like, I never have sympathy for these guys. You have one job, show up on weight. That's it. You're a professional fighter. Boom. And the guy face plants. So it's especially funny to me because he says like, I never have sympathy, which I think he was just referring to like a bad weight cut in general.
Yeah.
But you got to have sympathy for the guy who just passed out in front of a whole crowd of people and he's face down, shirtless, unconscious. Like, I feel bad for that guy in that moment.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad for them if like they get some of their money taken away for being overweight. I do agree with him. You know, there's plenty of professional fighters that make weight every time through, 30 fight careers and stuff like that. So I think Michael Bisping's correct. But it's just so funny, the timing of the two, where he's like, I never have sympathies for these guys. And he turns around, he's like, oh, shit. Oh. So that happened. Same weekend, Helena Cravar makes her one championship debut. And it was supposed to be for, I think they call it featherweight, 145, but a 145-pound match. And her opponent came in at 138. So she's already way undersized, even if it is at 145. Helena her official weight was 161. So it's like 16 pounds overweight for what they agreed upon. Now, apparently after her statements, she didn't like come in at 161. She came in, I guess, like 10 pounds over, around 155. But One Championship is the only organization that I'm aware of that does a hydration test. And I'm not sure of exactly how they measure it, but basically if you're dehydrated to a certain point for their test, your weight won't count. So then you have to rehydrate. And so that's what brought her all the way up to 161. So then they scrapped the match as a title match and just did it as like a catch weight, where the other girl was, still agreed to compete. She was going into it undersized. And then with this disparity, it's like undersized. A 20 plus pound difference, you know? So I think that one championship sees the star in Helena, and I think everyone does, right? And it's got to be difficult to get her opponents, but they're also doing like what I've mentioned before, that you want to try to like create a star by giving them matches that are going to work out for them where they win and they have success. But I think this is a case where the girl was already undersized and then she misses weight. She's coming in 20 pounds heavier. If it already favored Helena at 145 with that weight difference, it's like hard to call this a fair match, So Helena ends up getting an Estima lock, and of course, won championships, still boosting it like, oh my gosh, we got this star. So a big difference there between, the guy passing out at weigh-ins versus the hydration test. Obviously, I'm a fan of some of what One Championship's doing by trying to force the fighters to be healthier at those weigh-ins, because I'm sure a lot of these UFC guys, if they had the One Championship hydration test, they would fail it, right? Yeah. So they're making an effort to make the sport safer. But letting that match go on with a 20-pound difference is like, well, you have the right idea with the hydration, but I think that there's weight classes in combat sports for a reason, and you're not really giving the best image for this career,
And at what penalty did Helena receive for being so overweight?
She gave some percentage of her purse. I don't know the exact amount, but in different organizations, it can be like different 10% for every pound, things like that, that I've heard of for like MMA fights. But I don't know what ratio they did.
Every pound, 20 pound, go.
So, and I'm sure it was in the other girl's best interest to just take the match anyway, because, with whatever her show money was, plus a little bit of Helena's purse, and I'm sure Helena was getting paid more. So she probably walked away with a much better payday. So I think that going back to Bisping's statements is like, you do have one job. And this is something that I see with these teenage athletes, where what they were saying was like they weren't prepared for the hydration test aspect of the weigh-in. Because I do think Helena could have made 145 in Bangkok.
You saying Helena wasn't prepared for the hydration test?
That's kind of, she made some posts and some people from her team did. And it just seems like a slight or significant oversight from that camp.
It's not like they didn't know the test was going to happen.
It's definitely in the contract, right?
Yeah.
So
my
point about what I see with the teenagers is like, you got a professional athlete, but they're young. And in these cases, like, her parents are involved. So you got like the athlete, the parents, and then the coaches. There's not the responsibility all going into the coach, all going to the parents, all going to the athlete. So I'm imagining what happened was somewhere between that. They just didn't double check how exactly the hydration test was going to go, and then do like a mock weight cut or something like that ahead of time. The other thing that's pretty obvious is like, that was already going to be a pretty significant cut, right? Even if she I think their team said that she came in at like 155. So it's going to be like a 10-pound cut. 10-pound cut still really tough at 155 to 145, So
10-pound cut for me is a lot easier.
Yeah. Right? Same for me. I could do 10 pounds today if we absolutely had to do it, So I hope that Helena either moves up in weight if she does another One Championship match, or gets more help professionally on the side of like diet, nutrition, and losing the weight rather than trying to cut the weight.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like losing the weight like that over cutting the weight is always like the healthier option, right? And obviously I don't know what the thought process was with Helena and her camp and everybody involved, but I feel like completely outside looking in, it seems like they just weighed the options and decided to run with it, and like almost disregarding the weight, like disregarding being in a specific weight class, because that's a large disparity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like what happened was maybe they just weighed the options and was like, yeah, we'll just eat the cut of the purse, not worry about the weight cut, go in at whatever we go in at, full send.
Yeah, and I mean, it gets complicated. You're halfway across the planet. So
Yeah.
traveling to Bangkok is super tough on your body. You're on a completely different time zone. Every time I've ever flown, I feel like I get all inflamed and swollen, and my body doesn't feel like it did when I left, right? So I could understand there's a lot of variables to deal with here. But my bigger problem with it is just both of these stories is weight cutting has become so entrenched as a part of combat sports, and I still believe in weight classes, but I think that like if the one championship wants to be serious about making it healthier, like weigh these people during camp and make it to where like whatever you're at 6 weeks out, you can only have such a like a certain percentage that you lose from that point on, and just kind of encouraging something to where these people compete at the weight that they actually walk around at, or at least closer, right? The difference in MMA and grappling, a lot of the grapplers cut weight, but usually it's less significant cuts compared to the same weight classes in MMA. I mean, if you look at the middleweight roster for the UFC, these guys are enormous, right? Like
Yeah.
massive, well over 6 feet guys, definitely walking around in the 200s, and they cut down to 185. They can do it. They can make that weight class, but like there's definitely a better way to just get the guys that are the same size to compete against each other. And then I wish the UFC would add more weight classes, because going 155, 170, 185, that's where like most guys are at.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such a big jump. And then from 185 to 205. And kind of the same thing in the heavyweight division. There's 205 and then the max at 265 for heavyweight. But there's a bunch of guys that would fit in a great weight class at like 225, right? They're kind of like the smaller heavyweights. And I would love to see a category like that as well.
Would you think that like adding more weight classes almost like dilutes
Yeah.
the glory, right?
100%. It just doesn't make sense to me. I guess it does make sense in that you have like 10 pounds after 155 going down, right? 155, 145, 135, 125. But I just wish that they would keep going with shorter gaps between the weights as you go up, because it allows the guys to fit in the weight classes of 135, 145, 155, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not the same for the guys at 65, 75, 85. So I don't really have all the answers here, but it kills me seeing the weight cuts go bad on either way, right? I don't want to see guys passing out because they're trying to cut too much weight. And the whole thing of like, these guys are middleweight champions. They're 185. They weigh 185 for 5 minutes. And then the next day, I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of these, but these guys that are putting on 30 pounds. And they used to allow them to get IVs after, so it was even more significant. But this is 30 pounds in like 36 hours without an IV. Like, that's insane. They're not really a 185er.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a funny advertisement of, oh, this is the category. And I do respect good weight cuts to where you can maximize your frame in your weight class. I think that is an important part of combat sports. But it just kills me seeing both of these where it's like 20-pound disparity for a grappling match and then a guy just like passing out on stage. I hate seeing that. So I don't think the UFC will really change anything. I don't think they're going to add any categories, more weight classes. And I don't actually love the one championship hydration test because they have so many weight misses because of it. But there could be a solution somewhere with like monitoring athletes' weights and just only allowing like a certain percentage to be cut within the time frame. And even if people game that, right? So say they're checking your weight 6 weeks out before competition, you go like cut
like
some weight that day.
Yeah.
But even then, it's still going to keep you in a healthier range.
I was thinking about that, right? Because like if they check and monitor weight multiple times during or even leading up to a camp before the fight, then that system can be gamed, right? But what if let me backtrack. When do weigh-ins happen in respect to fight night?
For the UFC?
Sure, for the UFC and for one, if you know.
Ooh, for one, I don't know. But for the UFC, it'll be like the early morning, the day before on a nighttime event. So if they're fighting Saturday night, they're weighing in Friday morning. So they'll get Friday morning to Saturday morning and then about another 12 hours or so.
Okay.
So like I said, 36 hours or so for the UFC.
So What if instead of monitoring before, they monitor the weight gain after?
That is something that exists in certain combat sports.
Fuck. God damn it.
No,
I'm all over here thinking, I'm being like, oh, this is a game changer.
No, and I think it's a great solution. I think that would be.
But
the
it
best
already
way to
exists.
do it. Just in like smaller like Muay Thai tournaments and things like that. But they do have it to where there's like multiple days of competing, and you can like sometimes they make you weigh in each day. But there I have heard of where you make weight and then you can only gain so much back. And I think that what you're talking about is great because even if the fighter goes back to a heavier natural weight, I do think that that's what I'm asking for. Where at least on fight night, you're within a range like closer to your weight class.
10 pounds or something.
Yeah. And that would totally change how people cut weight.
Because 10 is...
Yeah. You can rehydrate and feel a lot better at 10, but you're not going to do a 25-pound cut if you can only do 10 pounds back.
Yeah.
Maybe you could. You could probably still compete. But I think in grappling, people already cut less weight. But my real concern is for the fighters, for MMA, any kind of striking thing. These guys are getting so dehydrated, they pass out on stage, and they're getting cracked in the head the next night. There's no way that your brain has reabsorbed enough liquid to be in its like best state. You know, I mean, getting punched in the head's obviously bad for you no matter what state you're in, but the more dehydrated you are, the more your brain's just going to rattle around inside your skull. So I just hate that part of it, where these guys are getting hit in the head while they're dehydrated. I'd rather just see them healthy and compete at their best.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what pro MMA is like, how well can you manage all of it? Cut the weight, rehydrate, and still perform, because none of these guys feel good when they're competing. And I'd love to just see what their actual prime would look like. And I think that that's what we'd see if we did what you're talking about, where you can only gain, call it even 15 pounds back, right? You're a lightweight at 155. You can come in at 170, but you can't cut to 155 and come in at 180, you know, or 175.
I remember talking with Jackson. Was that our second episode?
Yeah, I think it came out as like the third, but yeah.
Yeah.
It was like our second recording or whatever. Yeah.
It felt like so long ago. It feels like so long ago. Well, I guess it was, honestly. But I remember from that pod that in Muay Thai, if you throw up, you lose. So what if something like that is implemented around the whole thing too, right? It, like if you pass out, fall on your face, that is crazy. They still fought, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I have a funny story about that from being at a local tournament this Saturday.
Yeah.
Blast from the past. Run into a kid that I coached like 15 years ago in kids class.
Sick.
Didn't recognize him. He's like got a beard now. So I'm like, hey man, I don't recognize you, but that's awesome. You're out here. You're still competing. I did.
Did he come to you and be like,
a mutual friend did, right? And he was like, hey, do you remember this kid? You coached him this long ago. And I'm like, man, I
don't.
I mean, he was like, had to have been like 6 years old or 5 years old or something like that. But then I ran into his dad and I immediately recognized his dad. I'm like, okay, yeah, I do remember that family. I remember that dad 100%. And I still couldn't really specifically remember anything about the kid. But I ran into this kid and then he is in between matches about to go and just loses all of his watermelon and water on the side of the mat.
Oh,
and this is like the perfect example of local tournaments being just the worst. Is this guy throws up everywhere. Someone throws like 2 paper towels on a lot of liquid. Kid's just sitting in there. Like he did it off the mat, but he's still like knees on the mat kind of thing.
Yeah.
A few paper towels go on it. Clearly no one cleaned it up for like, had to have been 10 minutes or more. And then they like give him some wipies. He wipes down and he goes and competes. And I'm like, dude, if I'm that referee, you are disqualified. You're not going to compete in this bracket anymore. Like, I don't know what their rule book says, but if I'm on that mat, and I even talked to his opponent while this was all kind of going down, and I was like, dude, that should be a DQ. And his opponent was like, he said something and was just kind of laughing. And I was like, do you want to touch that guy right now?
Yeah.
So like, I don't want to touch somebody when their wrist and their knee has a little bit of vomit on it after they're just yakking all over the place.
So it was like literal watermelon and...
That's what it looked like. I'm just saying what it looked like. Oh, there's something red and a lot of liquid, you know? But he went back out there and scrapped it out. So, I mean, I wouldn't have...
That was your student?
Yeah, from a while ago.
Yeah.
Which, I felt so bad for the kid. He's just sitting there, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And like, dude,
I would be
this
too.
shit happens. I've seen tons of people run to trash cans at tournaments forever. People throw up. People throw up in the training room all the time. People run off the mat and go to the bathroom, and you hear the hilarious echo while you're still
Retching.
on the mat.
Yeah.
Dude, someone just ralphing in the bathroom.
Dude, I can't fake throw up because like it'll make me actually really want to throw up.
Yeah. Talking about the skunking in this, I think. Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
God.
So, on a much more depressing note, I did want to talk about what's going on in jiu-jitsu right now. I have a couple of personal kind of stories and where I've seen like the bad people in the sport and just giving my own, I guess, anecdotes of what I've kind of been through. And then just like a little bit of an overview of where we're at and just kind of my thoughts on everything. So I started training in 2009 in Pflugerville.
P-Town.
And, jiu-jitsu was very different in Texas at that time and very different overall, right? I mean, it was the end of the 2000s. You had already had the Ultimate Fighter show. The UFC was past its slump in the very early 2000s where it pretty much was like bleeding out, not really profitable. So I think this was like post Fertitta brothers getting involved and the sport really exploding. That came with jiu-jitsu kind of reaching new heights in the US. But in Pflugerville at the time, it was still very niche and there was just not like a lot of black belts in Texas, right? There's probably at that point, seriously, probably a handful, right? So I was training with this guy. I'm a teenager, white belt. There's a couple other teenagers that were consistent with me. And we trained with this guy named Paul. And my first bad vibe from this guy was, and this isn't too bad, but he would like take three of us and he would like take us three for a roll and he would roll until he submitted each one of us. And then he would like push us out and then take the next one. So he would just like get his reps. And I mean, purple belt 2009, you're a mat god,
He's
right?
a god.
You know more jiu-jitsu than anybody around. Like the coach at the time's a brown belt, right? And this guy was probably skillful, even at least, right?
Yeah.
So I never really liked that. Even as a teenager, I could just tell that he enjoyed taking me and the other teenagers and like fucking us up, right? So 2010,
It's not even fun. Like
this dude takes a plea deal for sexually assaulting an unconscious woman at a party. Basically, gets caught at a party. He's doing whatever to her. He takes a plea deal and I guess gets whatever the charges lowered. But he gets caught doing this to a woman. It gets kind of known. I don't see him again. Kind of even before that had come out, right? Maybe a year later, I hear that he's like teaching women self-defense classes down in South Austin. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is, I'm only like 15 and I'm like, man, this is messed up. Why is there no controls for this?
shouldn't
Right?
that be like put him on like some kind of list or some shit?
Right. And I mean, there was Facebook and stuff like that at the time. So I think there were people trying to like communicate it, but I think it was just a lot harder to tell everybody, and this is the problem with the martial arts kind of systems is that there is nothing stopping anyone from going and opening up a martial arts school. You go get a lease at any strip mall and you can go do it yourself.
Yeah.
Below that, any martial arts gym can hire anyone, right? Yeah. And if you know how to fight, and especially at that point, you're kind of well above average, then you're credentialed in that way. So first year in jiu-jitsu, I already start seeing that, man, like there's these people that are in the sport that in that context are highly skilled. In our training room, he was very much revered and highly regarded because he was a purple belt in 2009 in Texas. And we just didn't really have access to like jiu-jitsu information. There was very few instructionals. YouTube was still very young at that time. So there wasn't like the ability like there is now where you could go online and like learn a ton of jiu-jitsu on YouTube. And obviously I was at a good gym that once all this came out, dudes, he never came back and he obviously wouldn't have been welcome to come back. But before that had all happened, we all knew he was like kind of a jerk, but nothing to the point of like being able to kick him out of the gym or anything, So fast forwarding a few years, I became a kids coach at this gym and I was pretty much like in charge of the program. And I had an assistant coach that was volunteering that I didn't assign. I was just kind of told like, hey, this guy wants to help out with kids class. He's going to be here for the kids class days and he's going to help you out. I'm like, all right. He's not very good. He's a mid-20s adult and he didn't compete. He didn't take the sport super seriously. He didn't really apply himself too much, but made it up to blue belt. So that was kind of like the level that it was okay for him to come out, help the kids class. And this is in the same time that Andrew and William Tackett are in that kids class with a bunch of other kids that came up, ended up becoming, professional jiu-jitsu athletes at some point. So this guy would take a break in the summers and he would go, I guess, volunteer or work for the Boy Scouts of America at like summer camp for Boy Scouts. So he does it 1 year, takes like a month off, comes back, no big deal. Next year rolls around. He's like, hey, I've been helping, but just to let you know, I'm going to go do the summer camp thing. So I'll be gone for the next month. I'm like, all right, whatever. I didn't care. Right. And then one day I get a call from a parent at the gym. That's like, hey, you need to get on this now. And there was an arrest warrant out for this kid's coach. And while he was at the Boy Scouts of America camp, he put a hidden camera in a shower for the adults. And he had recorded some adults, but then he had convinced some of the boys to go into that shower, and he recorded them with this hidden camera in the shower after convincing the kids to go into that one. As far as I understand it, like one of the kids found it, and then like he kind of got caught there, and that led to the warrant. And then he ultimately turned himself in and, got, I don't really know like the follow-up from that point. But I'm like late teens, maybe 20 years old, and I'm like in charge of this kids program. And now I got to communicate to all these parents that this guy that's been rolling with their kids, being on the mat with their kids kind of day in, day out for at least a year, that this is what he's been charged with. These are the accusations. So then I had to go and communicate to the parents and basically tell them like, hey, you got to talk to your kids and let me know. Thankfully, we had cameras in the gym and this guy was never alone with the kids. He was always around other people watching him. So what disturbed me about that was that he got full access to kids and was obviously a pedophile, right? And since it was hidden cameras, then at 20 years old, I'm crawling through the attic and searching the entire gym for more hidden cameras in case he did the same thing at our location. But again, there was at least a small amount of confidence of like, we had our own cameras and the dude was never there alone in any circumstance. He didn't have like a key to the gym or anything like that. But the level of access he had in that situation, it really freaked me out. And it was like a gross, hard lesson to learn as a young coach of what potential circumstances you're up against, So I had some people in the gym that had like, hey man, I got a bad vibe about that guy well beforehand. So when this all came out, they were like vindicated, right? They were like, dude, I was telling you this guy is not good. So from that moment on, my whole perspective on what should or shouldn't happen in a kids class changed to where I was very reluctant to have that same concept of a volunteer to come into a kids class, and I don't.
Yeah, because he was a volunteer.
Yeah.
Right. Oh.
So, if you ask me nowadays to do that, basically not going to happen, and I have had to bring on more kids coaches in different gyms that I've worked at, but there's just kind of been a thing where there was a time where I was coaching kids classes with William Tackett and Andrew Tackett and another one of our students that was with us kind of that whole time. So I had now adults that grew up in jiu-jitsu and they went through all this and they were there for it. They were probably too young to fully understand what had happened, but I trusted them. And I knew that, as former kids class students themselves, they would be great coaches and create an environment that would only possibly be better than the environment they had, right? Maybe try to recreate the good parts of what they felt and then obviously be, just cautious and make sure that they set a good example for how the gym should be run and treat the kids well. So I just wanted to share those stories of like, I had from the very beginning, from when I was very young, and as soon as I was put into the tiniest position of power in a gym, but not fully in control of who was there, I got burned and I saw like the worst of what humans are capable of. And I think in both of those situations, you have an environment that draws the people in, right? I think that these guys were, whatever you want to call that type of a person, a piece of shit, obviously. But like what I think of now as like kind of evil people, I think they got drawn to this sport of jiu-jitsu because with time into it, then they can get into those more powerful positions within it and be able to take advantage of people, right? So I think that with where we're at currently, these are the results of similar types of people, sometimes athletes, much higher level athletes, sometimes very high level coaches. But I think it kind of follows that same path of they view it as a place for them to get access to just be even more, to live out whatever they want, to be closer to people, right? Because if I tell this to the kids class all the time, like if we do jujitsu up there at the grocery store right next to the gym, what happens? The police get called, right? Like you can't do this activity anywhere else but the gym. I mean, you could do it at your home or whatever, but you can't do jujitsu in public, especially in a place where people think you're actually like fighting or something. So it's just kind of this one activity where people are all up on each other and should be, drilling or rolling and practicing. But I think sometimes that line gets crossed, and it's an unfortunate part of jiu-jitsu because there's not anything else where you do that, right? Like you go into any other hobby or activity, maybe dancing is like the next closest thing, but I imagine communities that are really into dancing have like pretty obvious like body language things, and like people aren't groping each other up at like dance clubs and things like that. Obviously at like nightclubs, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean like salsa people, right? Yeah. I'm sure if you start acting inappropriately within the salsa community, you probably have some checks and balances, right? You probably get kicked out and that kind of thing. So that was just my personal experience being very young, starting to coach and seeing basically what I was up against. And I was like, man, there's going to be these people that they try to infiltrate jiu-jitsu and gyms and get themselves into a position where they can take advantage of people, And so just kind of giving more background and timeline for you. In 2013, there was the whole Team Lloyd Irvin debacle. And it was New Year's 2012. Two teammates from Team Lloyd Irvin.
Well, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, this comes full circle a little bit to the modern times,
shit.
right?
Okay.
So on that team, there were Keenan Cornelius and JT Torres and guys like Brandon Vera, who you might not know, but he was a UFC fighter, kind of in the same timeline. So the team kind of had a falling out because there was two guys that got charged with sexual related charges, right? Without going into details on what happened there. So same exact situation, but much worse. The problems I have with this one was that Team Lloyd Irvin was very well known because not only were they creating some of the best athletes that the sport has still ever seen, so like legitimately some of the best coaching and development of athletes, but also the first team to work within like search engine optimization. And so there was a big part of helping other gyms and gym owners develop their brand, develop their online presence, business marketing, creating videos that would draw people in, all sorts of like email related things, that kind of stuff. So that kind of brings me back to my same theme here, where one of the most influential coaches of all time that changed the sport, not only like on the mats and with the athletes, but also like in the marketing of the sport, has this kind of asterisk to it of, Lloyd Irvin in that situation was just the coach of this team, but it was two teammates that assaulted another teammate, right? Mm-hmm. And apparently it was violent. So kind of going full circle for what you're thinking of is I've been talking so highly of Elijah Dorsey, who just went against Andrew in the UFC BJJ, representing Team Lloyd Irvin. So at that point in time, that's, 12 years past, Team Lloyd Irvin's name is back in the mix of jiu-jitsu. I think there's a lot of people that have started jiu-jitsu. There's probably definitely more people that have started post-COVID that they might not even know the story I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that's in the past. And I can tell you definitely through the 2000 teens, Team Lloyd Irvin was like, you don't even want to like talk about it kind of thing. Cause it was just such a nasty example of what can kind of go wrong in this sport. And so that was 2013, kind of started some of the concerns of what I'm talking about with the darker side of the realities in these jiu-jitsu gyms and jiu-jitsu communities. And I'm going to skip over a lot of like any kind of details and definitely any kind of victims personally. But you had like the Me Too movement. What was that, like 2016-ish or something like that, I want to say. And that was a good movement in the jiu-jitsu space of allowing the side of like, you can tell your story, right? Because there's this whole time, and I'm sure for much longer than I was in the sport, there were people that were getting mistreated and abused, but they didn't really have any way to put that information out, you know? So there was a little start of that.
That was happening in the jiu-jitsu community as well during
Yeah, I mean, I think that time it was kind of going off in every community.
Okay.
And the jiu-jitsu community wasn't like void of that, right? Yeah. So there was just a little bit of it. There were some like hashtags that people were using when they were trying to like put people out on what they had done. And then 2022, there was like another big scandal that kind of brought up fight sports into it. It was a fight sports affiliated coach, and he, you know, took an athlete to a fight to win tournament. Some shit went down in the hotel room. It became a big deal. And it was a juvenile teenage girl with a, 40, whatever year old coach. And that made another kind of awakening in the sport. People are like, man, this is fucked up. This is not okay. Right. So timeline wise, that ultimately led to like 2022, the IBJJF, I think for like gym owners and like certified like IBJJF black, not just black belts, because I don't think that they did like a background check for me, but in 2022 the IBJJF added background checks, and I think that was just to have your own gym, but it was their kind of public attempt at like, all right, we're trying to shift this in a better direction to where we're at least checking up on, if you have a past criminal record where you took a plea, you now can't have a gym, Mm-hmm. So obviously I'm not putting anybody on blast by saying like Andre Galvao has now been accused of the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. This kind of this pattern of grooming relationships and juveniles and teenagers with the wise, masterful sensei coach, And the problem is that I'm skipping over the details because there's so many examples that it's, to me, getting countless, right? There's so many of the same exact story happening where it's sometimes what disturbs me the most is when it's the girls are with a program very young and they stick with it. And then at a certain age, the behavior changes and it starts getting sinister. But even if it's not that exact story, it's juveniles, right? That's what we call it in the sport. Is you hit juvenile. Mm-hmm. Once you've hit like 16, you can get a blue belt. You can start competing at worlds, And that just seems to be the time in which these incidents continue to occur. So what my problem with it is kind of going back to my first coach, or not my first coach, but that situation at my first gym, my first year of training, is this guy was associated with an extremely well-known jiu-jitsu black belt who's known as like the Hollywood A-list celebrity jiu-jitsu coach. And after this very famous jiu-jitsu coach had publicly like condemned the guy that I referred to in the first story, post a picture like a year later with them hanging out together. So it's everywhere. It's every major affiliation. They've got some kind of story like this. And my problem with it is obviously the individuals that are doing this kind of behavior. But the bigger problem, and why people had so much problem with the fight sports thing, is the organizations and the structures around these individuals having their back through it. So they either help them leave the country, or help them keep it quiet, or tell the victims that they need to stay quiet.
Be quiet. Yeah.
Or don't, I've heard examples of like, don't bite the hand that feeds you, you know? And again, this isn't pointing at anyone specifically. This is just the structural problems. And clearly these people that, you know, they get the clout of, like Ashton Kutcher, I think he just did like a scissor sweep on like Jimmy Kimmel or something like that, right? And that's huge for the sport. Ashton Kutcher's a black belt. He's been training for a very long time. He's going on a late night type show and showcasing jiu-jitsu. That gets more eyes on jiu-jitsu that don't normally see jiu-jitsu. That's awesome, right? But even people in those communities clearly have no problem being around the types of people that are doing horrific, violent shit and mistreating, especially women in jiu-jitsu, you know? So say with the Galval situation, there's not really like an end result right now. It's still very much in the process of, he's made his public statement saying that he didn't do anything and like the truth will come out. There's been plenty of different accusations against him. This has snowballed like a second Me Too type movement where all over the country and probably the world, there's, I think, a little bit more confidence in the victims that they can speak up and that they actually will have some kind of help behind them.
Yeah, backing support.
So take like Atos, for example, which is started by Andre Galvao after he left another team. And he accumulated like almost 80 affiliates. And within the first few days of this stuff coming out, he had lost a quarter of them. And I'm pretty sure by this point, he's lost many more than that, where these gym owners that were Atos affiliated gyms are now just their own gym. So what I take the current time as, you know, you use these guys that they're so good in the sport and we put them on the pedestal that they should be on because they got to the top of a podium. The pedestal is the podium. They won the tournament, you know, and a lot of times over and over again. And so if you're a small time jiu-jitsu gym, you want to have access to that high level coaching, right? And you want to have maybe some of the SEO style benefit where they can teach you how to market your gym better. And maybe the name is so big that it draws in people that already train jiu-jitsu and they move to a new city. It's like, oh, there's a Atos in my area. I know Atos is Andre Galvao. I know he's one of the greatest athletes that the sport's ever seen. I'm going to go to him, right? And finally you're seeing a severing where people don't care. These gym owners that have left Atos, they clearly don't care how good Andre Galvao is anymore because what he's being accused of is so heinous that they deem it unacceptable, right? And I think that is like the baseline problem in the sport of jiu-jitsu is that like we have turned the blind eye in many different situations where if someone's really good, maybe you put up with them being a jerk. Or if someone's really good, you deal with, oh, that guy's politics are kind of crazy, but like, dude, I'm learning from the best in the world. So I'll deal with it, right? And that's my problem with what has to stop and needs to change, where obviously we don't know everybody, but if there's public things against you and then convictions, you have to draw a line and say, I'm not going to work with this person. And I think the darkest side of it is something with combat sports draws these types of people into it. So I think it's always going to be a problem that we deal with, but we're in a great place now where there's so many online networks, so much communication. People can put this stuff out there and say, hey, this guy is bad news. Make sure that like, if you ever see him at a gym, he shouldn't be allowed in. He shouldn't be coaching. He shouldn't be in you putting pressure back on the promoters of jiu-jitsu events. Hey, don't let this guy come in. Right. Like even here, Isaac Mitchell's been, I don't know how to put it, like charges pressed against him. And he's in Australia and the charges are in Texas. So now there's pressure from promotions where he won ADCC trials. Right. So he should be going to ADCC this year in Poland. Is he going to go? Is he going to be allowed to go? I think with the current situation of jiu-jitsu, it would be very unlikely to me that the ADCC stays committed to having Isaac come in. I don't know what the resolution is. I know that Mo Jassim had said that they probably shouldn't have him come compete. And that I think it can be a dangerous side of like, you know, mob mentality things start happening. But I think in these situations, especially that one, you've got a criminal investigation occurred and charges were filed. right? So I think people need to recognize that there's not more value in someone that may be a world-class coach or a world-class athlete over them being a fucked up, evil, sick person. And that it may feel like at the beginning that there's a loss in for jiu-jitsu and like the quality, because some of these guys are the best athletes. Like I said, Team Lloyd Irvin, I mean, they've produced consistently over the years some of the best athletes that the sport has, genuine, like absolute pioneers of the game, right? And there's other good coaches out there. There's other good athletes out there. I think what is freaking me out so much right now is that it seems to be everywhere.
It's like you can't get away from it.
Yeah. But I know that there's good people in the sport.
Yeah.
And I am encouraging people to find those places where they feel safe, you know, say, hey, this is a good spot. Like, trained with a ton of women over the years. And the feedback I get about like Lachlan Giles or Giles, I don't know how to say his name, is phenomenal, right? I've only ever heard incredible things about him. He had a great run in ADCC, got a bunch of 6 submissions on guys bigger than him. He's changed the game for leg locks, so he's also a pioneer himself. And let's stop putting these guys that have all these allegations against them up on the pedestal as like our ambassadors for the sport, and do it for the guys like Lachlan, who, as of now, and I hope to will continue to be a good example for the sport, and creating world-class athletes, being a world-class coach, and not bringing all this fucking evil with it, you know? So I don't like talking about all this stuff. I've tried my best to not, you know, name too many specific people in this, but a lot of this is all publicly out there anyway. So
you can find,
you know, you can find all of this stuff on your own
if you don't already know about any or all of it already. Anyways. So.
And so my last point on all this before we move on to like some questions and stuff and hopefully get like a little bit more positive kind of tone is, not only have I worked as like a jiu-jitsu coach and a Muay Thai coach and coached MMA fighters and stuff, but for a short stint, I was a gymnastics coach. And gymnastics, unfortunately, they went through a very similar problem where the powerful men in the sport, including like, I think his Dr. Larry Nassar, right? He was like a doctor for USAG or something.
There's a Netflix doc, right?
Yeah. And, you know, this is something close to me because later on I went to go coach gymnastics, but my family's always been involved with gymnastics. And my sister has already like been a part of that wave of girls that went through the mistreatment of gymnastics athletes. So what I'm getting to in what gymnastics at least learned from that was that they needed more training for coaches, right? So as a gymnastics coach in any Olympic sport is going to have like a safe sport certification. So safe sport creates like defensive driving for coaches kind of thing.
Yeah, so we talked about this. It's
right.
It's like TABC.
Yeah, right? It's like
for
any other
coaching.
certification.
Yeah.
So for me to be a gymnastics coach, I had to go through the safe sport for gymnastics. And at the time, I was already coaching jiu-jitsu. And I had been coaching jiu-jitsu for like a decade at that point. And
is that required for jiu-jitsu coaches?
No.
Okay.
And we're not an Olympic sport. So that would be like for safe sport, that specific company to be required, like jiu-jitsu would have to be Olympic sport. And then it would be like any gym that's through, I guess, national or international.
But that doesn't mean that gyms can't
require
it.
So
for coaches,
right? I should have put in the effort to find the exact name of it. Maybe I can pull it up right now. But the point is that safe sport has great training for like coaching, and they teach you in the thing, like what is grooming and then like all the signs of grooming. And when I went through it for coaching gymnastics, I'm looking back on that second story I told you. And I'm like, yeah, this fucking makes sense. He put himself into this position where he would gain access and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, they give you really fucked up examples in the training, but that's the reality of what happens, you know? And gymnastics, you know, part of it's them covering their own ass now after the fact from all the shit that happened to athletes there. But I guarantee you it's helping create better environments for gymnasts all over.
Yeah.
You know?
And what is it? It's not a thing that would be said to prevent like bad people from doing bad shit.
You can't
right?
stop a
Right.
certain level
You're
of
not
that.
you're not gonna do it's not gonna do that. But what it will do is raise awareness of the possibility that these things can happen in these particular environments. And as like a community or cadre of coaches, right, be able to notice something, potentially happening and stop it before it gets too far. I mean, is that?
I'm sorry, I was trying to find this thing. What I'll do is I'll put it in the description for when we post this. There is an organization that is basically creating like not only like a safe sport style training module for jiu-jitsu specifically, but also like stickers for the front door on the glass. That's like this gym has coaches that have gone through this.
Yeah. But I was saying it's not gonna stop bad people from doing
Right.
bad shit, but the idea is to raise awareness so that everybody else
Yes.
can be aware of
Yeah,
it and
exactly.
stop it. Okay.
Exactly. And my version of that was like going through the shit I went through as a teenager myself, and then as a very young coach, and seeing like, fuck, okay, you can't trust people, and you have to have some form of a vetting process. So for me, I wish I had a better solution, but at least my solution at the time was the people that coach kids classes with me were kids that were in my kids classes. And then they came up as coaches themselves, and we had years-long relationships. We were all family friends. We all knew each other's like parents and families.
The vetting process is my boy.
Yeah.
Right?
And unfortunate, like that doesn't sound good to say it that way, but like I can tell you who those coworkers are. Andrew Tackett, William Tackett.
Right,
These guys are what I'm asking for of good examples in the sport of high-level athletes that they don't have this shit. And I know that, right? So anyway, the safe sport is an option that will at least help, like you said, bring more awareness to people, educate more coaches. And I as sick as I have been over all of this, I at least can see a real change happening. And since it's so much of these guys that have been always highly regarded, right, that their world's coming crashing down around them, I think it's creating a nice proper power vacuum, if you will, where like the good people will be brought up to the top as the good examples. And I in this situation care the most about, like I was saying, like the juveniles and the kids. I think that's where I know I can help keep safe environments for them, and obviously for women too. But I also am not on the side of like I think the women are creating great situations themselves to solve these problems. And I'm a big supporter of like the women coaching and things like that, because this has been a male dominated sport. I mean, I can tell you from when I started till now, there's way more athletes on, like women athletes on cards, women, female coaches, all that kind of stuff. And I think them leading that will be a better like result than me trying to act like I'm the almighty protector.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously I'm still going to like call out shit as I see it and always have people's back in the gym. But I think that is like the good coming out of all of this bad is that the sport will be changing. And like I was saying, the networks and these organizations that were able to hush things up, the internet is so unforgiving in that way, where it's like things are out now and it's not going to go in a reverse direction from there. So I'm concerned about the sport, but I know that there are a lot of good people that care about the sport like I do. And I hope soon that we start having some significant changes to who we idolize in the sport of jiu-jitsu, and, put pressure. If things continue to come up, ADCC keeps Isaac, then it's like, don't go to that ADCC, don't watch it or whatever. I don't think that we'll get to that point, but if there's known guys that have, done things, and something that I guess I am almost getting kind of sexist, like this shit is not just guys to juvenile girls, right? There's girls doing it to girls. There's guys doing it to boys and guys, so it's anybody in this kind of seemingly more powerful position and having predatory behavior. So it's not exclusive to one specific dynamic, but I think that we're on the other end of it where things are they're going to get better from here. Unfortunately, right now we're in the phase where stories are just popping up all over the
left
place.
and right.
But I think one of the most recent story I saw, my assessment of the situation was the victim in that situation finally felt like it was time to be able to come out and she would have support.
Yeah.
So that made me feel like hopefully we can continue getting these messages out there where anyone that's been in the situation, especially if they've been in it for long enough where they've not been able to speak up and they have, some kind of other larger power structure against them, that they know that obviously the police will help them out and then the community will kind of back them.
Is there anything outside of that, safe sport that you think we can do that would, I don't know, help prevent some of this shit from happening?
You see something, you say something.
Right? I was thinking more cameras and more access to cameras, because like having a shitload of cameras but only one creepy dude being able to, look back on it isn't helpful. But like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, almost like when you're at like the Target or something and you like wave at yourself because they like put the TV up of like their cameras. Yeah, that definitely could help. I think cameras should be in every martial arts gym for sure. And I mean, there's a bunch of reasons. Like, dude, places get burglarized. Things happen on the mat where you want to go back and just look at like what exactly happened. Because sometimes when somebody gets hurt, even you don't know exactly what happened, right? So I think that's super important. And then I think that basically, kind of going my point I said earlier of like anyone can go open up a jiu-jitsu gym, and I don't really know like a legal level that needs to change, but there definitely needs to be something of like. And I don't even honestly think that the IBJJF is the organization to lead the way on this, but some form like safe sport where it's like every gym needs to have this, and not just the owner of the gym goes and does it once. Anyone that's teaching classes should also have some degree of safe sport like training,
like
if you're going to teach jiu-jitsu. Yeah, like if back when I served food and alcohol,
right?
That shit expired, I could not work.
Yeah,
your shit expires, as much as
it
cannot work.
Sucks, and you're like,
oh fuck, it's a pain in the ass, and I don't want that to turn into something where like somebody's profiting massively off of that.
Yeah,
but I think with how these kind of things work, there's definitely people out there that could help build a good training program. And again, I'm going to put in the description the option. I want to say it's like the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies account guys, and they have like their own podcast, and they like encourage this, and they're trying to, they've been fighting this fight for a long time.
Yeah.
Another shout out would be like Train Angry MMA. He's, unfortunately there's not a lot of jiu-jitsu journalism, and he's at least putting out everything that's coming out. So, you can go follow him, and he at least seems like he's trying to do what he can to give everybody both sides, right? Saying, all right, this is what the guy said, his version of it. This is what, my version of it is.
Yeah.
So I've, in a lot of these situations, I've tried to Google things, and there's just like not even like, there's not an article written, So I'm sure more of that is going to become snowballing down as of now, but it's still hard to kind of get these things. So definitely go check out the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies guys. They're on the right side for this. So I have some questions. You have some questions. Hit me with some of your questions first if you want.
So one of them was actually in regards to weight cutting and like the hydration testing.
Okay.
And talking about Helena and stuff. So that was cool. Another one is talking about different major jiu-jitsu competitions and like organizations. What differentiates them? Why are there like so many, like, okay, so our comp classes, right? Sometimes we'll train for ADCC specifically. Sometimes we'll train IBJJF. There's so many different organizations and rule sets. I don't know. What's the reason for it?
I mean, IBJJF's Brazilian, so they're going to come from like the gi side originally. I'd be interested in to figure out when exactly they started no gi at all.
IBJJF?
Yeah, I want to say that's definitely not, that wasn't there from the beginning, I don't think. I imagine they probably started doing those as the no-gi just was kind of becoming more popular. And like the no-gi popularity probably came from the ADCC, right? So the ADCC is started from a sheik in Abu Dhabi who was a fan, but wanted it to be a little bit more hybridized between wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So like the scoring is very similar in both. You pretty much get rewarded for the same positions with a few subtle differences, right? Like Neon Belly scores in both, takedown score in both. Obviously, ADCC has half the match where it's no points, so you're not scoring points in the no points period. But when you score points, it's basically the same. So it seems to be pretty agreed upon on like when you should score, minus like Naga tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of very specific rules about like 3 points on the mat, you know, for a takedown or something like that, right? For ADCC, like 2 hips and a shoulder.
Yeah, those are the subtle differences.
Okay,
right. And like I was just talking about it teaching class this morning on if you're training for ADCC and you want to take the back, you don't have to train to get hooks for 3 seconds. You can just take a body triangle on the back and that's going to score the back. Whereas in IBJJF, you have to do this silly thing where maybe your back take works better where you take a body triangle, but if you want to score the 4 points, you got to take it off, put the hooks in, count to 3, get your points, go back to your body triangle.
Yeah.
Which isn't too hard, but it does run a risk of them being able to escape. Okay, so IBJJF Nogi started in 2007. So they have been doing it for almost 20 years now. But you can really see the difference in the gi. I think what the IBJJF has created is exactly what happened to judo, where because of their rule set, they funneled it into like a style specific thing. And what comes from that is a sport that should be about the submission becomes a lot more about scoring points and winning on points. And they've got points and then they've got advantages and they've got penalties. So there's like 3 different categories for your kind of score. And I've noticed that there's a specific style that comes out of teams that have well adapted themselves to the IBJJF style. And then there's people that are more grappling neutral, whether it's gi or no gi, where they're just grappling. And they're not as pinpoint focused on scoring within the IBJJF point system. And I think that goes into like people intentionally padding their score where like they're maximizing the points be above what I would consider control. In Craig Jones' Power Ride instructional, he has a really good rant about this. In these positions that we have prioritized in jiu-jitsu over for the sake of points over what is good self-defense and what is good total control, you know? So
like what? Like an example of that?
So like what you see all of like the Russian guys doing in the UFC, where sometimes they wouldn't even count as like guard passes, but they're in complete control over their opponent, right? So you could even just take like a small example where ground and pound works really well and like you're on top half guard and you just lock yourself in. More specifically, I'm thinking of things like double unders, which is like really good control position. You're in very little danger for getting submitted. And like in a self-defense situation, it's a very strong position to be in, but like it doesn't score, you know?
Yeah.
The whole Power Ride instructional is about creating like a split where like you put something, you have someone's legs split sideways and you put something to kind of pin them there in that position. So maybe you're not like past the guard, but if you pin like the upper body while you split the legs, like they can't get up. And again, that's like pretty much what all like the Dagestani Chechens are pretty much doing. And I really like his rant at the beginning of that instructional because he just breaks down like we have hunted and shifted so focused on scoring. Like you ever pass someone to side control and they just explode?
I don't know. I already can't relate.
Right? Like maybe you're like in control and then you go to side control so you can get the guard pass and then it's like you feel way less in control. You know?
No, absolutely.
So I think there's also a blend where you can accommodate to doing the best things to score points while still having good control. And like philosophies like passing the guard to mount, right? I think it's a lot better. Mount's always going to be good, whether it's MMA or jiu-jitsu, you know. But I mean, nowadays we're in such a weird spot because like in the most recent timeline, a big shift has happened where jiu-jitsu is doing rounds. Jiu-jitsu didn't do rounds until the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a few one-off tournaments here and there, but now like CJI, UFC BJJ, different things are doing, 3 5-minute rounds or 5 5-minute rounds that look just like MMA. So I think that they're finally trying to accommodate to a larger audience, which is like consuming boxing before MMA and then MMA, and they're like used to that
UFC,
format. And like you don't have any positional point scoring, right? Like you do a 10-9 round, so a 10-point must system, completely different from both the IBJJF and the ADCC. So we're actually spreading out further and getting even more rule sets, and like submission onlys out there, EBIs
I was
out
about
there.
to say EBI.
So that's
yeah.
another one. I hear really good critiques of everything. I personally,
PGF.
yeah, PGF. They've got a combination of they're trying to go more entertainment aspect. So they're trying to give like money bags to guys for getting a submission in the first minute and things like that. So I think that is also full of great ideas. Kind of a grueling type format because they're competing week after week after week and doing tons of matches over the course of, I think, like 6 weeks for a season.
That definitely limits weight cuts, right?
Yeah, that's another great example,
Yeah.
right? I will say that's like a positive from the PGF format. I'll give the same critique to PGF that I've given for anything that's on a flat mat. So I'd love to see PGF in the Karate Combat Pit or the UFC BJJ Bowl. Just because sometimes at PGF you see guys fighting on the couches surrounding it. It's like, all right, like this is an amazing show. I want to see them grapple each other and be somewhat contained.
Yeah.
But that's super expensive, right? So
Yeah.
they're already putting a ton of money into that event. So asking for that would probably make it to where they couldn't do the event, But I think mostly like the points make sense in jiu-jitsu for the most part. Like I do think passing guard should be rewarded, even though I think there's other positions that aren't technically passing someone's guard that it's really good control. But I think that for the entertainment and professional side, we'll probably see consistency in like the round format would be my guess, and like the 10-point must system. I feel like it's a little bit easier for people to like understand. Probably going to like have like the whole objectivity subjectivity thing, right? From counting mounts and guard passes, it's a lot easier to say like, look, you scored more points and you won, versus saying like, oh, I think you got a 10-9, you think I got a 10-9.
Yeah.
That's really hard to call. But I think sticking with that format over time, like CJI, for example, even on their first event, their judges and referees learned a lot and made adjustments and figured out how they wanted to call it. So I'm kind of a fan of that format. But yeah, currently it's just like everyone trying out different stuff. You got what happened last weekend where there's like some form of 2-on-2. And I saw a video of 3 people grappling at once where one guy's in like a Kimura and then the other guy's on his leg or something. Or one guy's like holding someone else's leg and then he's in a Kimura or whatever. I don't think that that's it for like the entertainment side. It doesn't make it easier to have like a casual watch it and understand what the heck is going on. But we're basically,
it could be cool because like it's kind of chaotic.
yeah,
You know?
I think we're just in a time of like people are still experimenting and we're still figuring it out.
Like, what about like grappling industries and nagas and stuff? Does that even like
so
play, or is that just like smaller stuff?
A lot of smaller tournaments in the gi will just straight up adopt IBJJF rules.
Yeah.
I'm generally a fan of that because that's how I teach. In the gi, I'm gonna teach you IBJJF rules, and we're generally gonna go off of those rules for training. I kind of disregard like the skill level unlock for submissions. Like if we're training in the gi and you're a white belt, I don't care if you want to train knee bars. It's totally fine with me. You just need to know when you go to compete, you can't do that yet, right? But in general, sticking with those rules, most tournaments either do straight up IBJJF rules, and you'll see that in their book, like in their rule book, or you'll see like the point scoring is the same, but they take away advantages, or it's very close to it. The Naga, I can't remember how they do their gi, but their no gi, and their gi might be the same as their no gi, but they've got like 1 point for submissions, like attempts. So they've kind of got like the most unique one, I would say. It's kind of different from anybody else's. But you do have to accommodate to it. I think a good athlete is able to utilize their
Adapt.
skill set and say, I can compete under anything. I just need to read the rules before I do it, and I will figure out what I can and
Keep it
can't do.
straight. Yeah.
Because we both know plenty of purple belts that are at the professional level that when they go to IBJJF, they can't even reap and they can't heel hook. But these guys are 100% leg lockers, you know?
Yeah.
And they still perform great under that stage. They just have to figure out what they can and can't do and strategize around that.
Yeah. So new to the sport, right? New to the sport, new on the mats, a lot of effort, right? How do you not gas yourself?
During training?
Both during training and say first comp. I remember my first comp, right? Huge adrenaline dump,
Yeah.
forearms, mad juicy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was a lot. And I don't even think I have the answer because I haven't competed much. You know?
I have like a boring answer, and I say this all the time. And like, you really, from my perspective, you really see it for like the people that have gone past this phase and have trained for longer. Is like you're not breathing.
Yeah.
You have to breathe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like you get trained in weightlifting to like trap air to build pressure in like your core, and that works. It makes you stronger. So sometimes, like when you're exerting force and you're trying to use strength in jiu-jitsu or grappling, you do that, and then you create like a deficit where now you have to breathe. You got to move some oxygen somehow. So then after that, you start hyperventilating. You know, so just remembering to breathe. I say it to people all the time when I see that phase. I'm like, hey, breathe. I could tell them a million things they're doing wrong.
And it's like they're in a centrifuge or like training to be a pilot or something. They're like,
yeah. No, dude, that hook breathing is absolutely.
is that what it's called?
I'm convinced that the same methods that are keeping those pilots conscious is exactly how we fight off strangles. I think it actually does work, and it's like actually both use the same technique.
Shit.
But
Yeah.
you know that's not really what I'm talking about. It's just those times where, as a coach from the outside, people in that phase, both at a tournament or at the gym, it's like breathe. And then they're like, you can see, and I think that's where like the deeper.
You ain't telling me to breathe. The fuck? I thought you cared.
Yeah, but I think with you, I was able to kind of skip that and just go into like, hey, you're not frame, you know, actually going to the real side of the coaching. But I think like the combo, I'm saying breathe is the example, but it's all like nervous system stuff, right? And like controlling your adrenaline and emotions. So like when you remember to breathe, like you'll just generally calm down. So, I mean, it's like my most important thing that I try to teach kids when they start is if they haven't done like breathing techniques before, is like how to do them like outside of like a roll, and then just kind of carrying that over into everything. Because if you can control your breath, you'll get so much faster. If you're thinking about breathing while you're rolling, you'll just like get into the flow state because the reactions are going to happen. Even if you suck, you're still going to react. Whereas like if you're thinking too much and not breathing, then thinking about breathing will help you you'll do something. You'll keep moving. And then like the ideal homie Roberto Jimenez is one of my favorite examples of this. I've seen this dude ice cold with his mouth closed, nasal breathing, subbing black belts. And I'm like, that's peak. He's, you know, probably not actively thinking about breathing, but he's trained himself where he can breathe in and out through the nose. And he's clearly not hyperventilating. And he's, you know, at many times in the flow state. So it's like what you're aiming for.
That's sick. Yeah, I can definitely see like adrenaline dumps in comps. I'm talking like me personally, you know, like I would probably suffer from that. But in the training room, I don't know. It's pretty chill. You know what I mean? I think it's just about like where you're comfortable and where you spend time, you know? Because I don't be competing, so I'm still a real big bitch on the competition floor. But at the gym, I'm cool with getting crushed.
Yeah, you ever heard of like sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous system? So, right, like you're at that sympathetic side of it when you're hyperventilating and you're not remembering to breathe. So that's the argument I'm saying is remembering to breathe will kind of shift you back parasympathetic. rest and digest, which obviously when you're rolling, you're not going to rest or digest really, but it's that like kind of two poles where on one side you're, you know, stressing, adrenaline dumping, and on the other side you're calm. Yeah. So trying to like not let the sympathetic nervous system just go haywire.
Go. You got one?
I have a funny one that I don't have an answer, but I love the question, which is like the craziest thing I've seen in the wild. And like
the wild meaning what?
Like hunting, hiking, camping, stuff like that.
I thought it was like Kimuras in the wild.
No, and the first instinct was just like I was on like a longboarding trip in like, I don't know if Minnesota has mountains, but to me they were mountains in Minnesota. And I was like kind of hiking and came across a moose real close, like in the trees in the woods. And it was just like the biggest animal I've been around. So it just freaked me out because it was like a car sized and, you know, thing moving through the woods. And it went straight away from me, but it was like, that was probably the most in the moment thing that was like, holy shit, that thing's huge and moving quickly through super dense woods. So that was probably the answer for that one.
When you said you saw a moose in the trees, not stupid, but I literally thought that there was like a moose like up in the branch.
That would be wild. that would be the craziest thing. Yeah.
Wild.
No, that would be insane.
I have a crazy thing I've seen, but it's like the complete opposite of
Was it a skunk in your backyard?
In the wild. That was pretty fucking wild. But no. We were in Kansas or Oklahoma, I don't know, visiting my brother in the middle of like a trip or something, and we ended up going to the zoo. Opposite of wild, I know, but we went to the zoo and it was the saddest fucking thing, dude. We were going around to the exhibits. There was a gorilla in like, you know, not a cage, but like, you know, a fake Pride Rock situation.
Yeah.
Feel me? And the gorilla was sad as fuck, bro. He was like laying. He wasn't like paint me like one of your French girls, but he was like laying down, you know, like on his side, and he was just like tracing a finger on the stone, and like he just like looked miserable. And then he got up, sat up like halfway a little bit, and then he just fucking he let go of all his watermelon. What did you say? Yeah. He just fucking yacked right in front of himself. He was like, "Wah." And he came back down, and everybody's like, "Oh no!" You know, everybody's just watching the gorilla. Everyone's like, "Oh no! Oh, so sad." And then the gorilla goes, and instead of tracing on the stone, he goes and he takes a scoop. And he starts eating his watermelon.
Yeah.
I was like, no. It's fucking sad as zoo experience. Dude. Opposite of wild, for sure. But crazy work.
Any zoo trip as an adult has been pretty depressing
sad,
for me.
Bro.
Yeah. I think that there's places that people keep animals and people go watch those animals that I think it can be good. But the last two...
Go to Jester King Brewing and visit them goats.
Happy goats?
Some happy goats, baby.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And that makes sense. It's a little easier to handle something like that. But yeah, especially when it's like polar bears at a zoo in a place that doesn't get snow. It's like, dude...
Yeah.
I don't need to see a polar bear that bad. Like, this is just super depressing for them.
Bear's like, what's up with this fake white?
Yeah.
I like aquariums, though. That shit's fucking cool.
Yeah, I feel like we all just kind of regard fish as being, like, less sentient than animals, though. So we kind of just, like, whatever, they're a fish. Because then you see...
What about whales?
That's what I was about to say. You see that change
and then
with the dolphins and the whales where...
They start going.
We either connect with them more or they're just somehow more capable of expressing their depression, sadness, that kind of stuff.
Fuck.
There's probably some reality to it though, because like I think this is kind of both a myth and been debunked, but also probably true of like the goldfish, right? Like I don't think their brain and nervous system is making memories and quite as complex, especially compared to like a dolphin. So yeah, some of the fish in aquariums are probably just like take a lap, wow, check it out, and then take a lap, you know, and it's all new. But yeah, they're
sick.
yeah, it's harder to tell. But yeah, I mean, even the same thing with like people that I think people that are like vegan, obviously they don't even want you to eat fish, but there's kind of like lacto-ovo pescatarians where like they don't want to kill mammals and stuff and eat the red meat, but then like they'll eat fish because it's like, well, it's a fish. So I think people have like some weird justification with like the value.
I'll eat a goldfish.
Another one that I do want to answer is like, what is the context of why you transition from an athlete to a coach, and what do I like about both? The real answer is I didn't transition. I was coaching. Like I always wanted to be a coach. I got into combat sports from a family member who was like former boxer turned boxing coach and trainer and manager. And I always kind of looked up to him. And even before I like formally was training combat sports or martial arts, I was like, I already had like a heavy bag. And I remember this specific memory of like trying to convince my neighbor to fight one of his bullies. And so I was like trying to teach him how to hit the heavy bag in preparation to like take on his bully. So like,
hell yeah.
I just always had that like,
mind your business.
that like coaching kind of energy. So that's where like, as like a teenager, I just fell into like coaching the kids classes so quickly. So I would say for me, I always, I in some way, like I don't let people do this now, right? Like if you start as a brand new white belt, like you don't just get to start coaching. You got to put in like some serious time.
I do.
Well, and that's a thing that happens, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
white
yeah.
belt coaching happens and it can be kind of detrimental. But I always had like the coaching side with the athlete side. I guess when it got the most athlete focused was definitely when I was living in Houston. And when I first moved there, I was still competing in jiu-jitsu, and then I transitioned to competing just in Muay Thai and training in that. And I will say as an athlete, that was definitely like my best time competing, most successful time, because I wasn't coaching and I was just focused on myself. But the real transition to stopping being an athlete to a coach actually has the third part, and we've talked about this plenty, of when I started making content. And I got some really good advice from a fellow content creator that was helping me out from the very beginning. And it was like kind of like a triad of, you know, you can make content and you can be an athlete, you can coach and you can make content, but you can't coach, be an athlete, and make content. You're just not going to have enough time to give your whole ass into all three of them. And I knew deep down I really liked coaching, and I just started the content and I had no success athletically. So I was like, easy, no brainer. I always felt like I was, you know, I felt like I was doing a better job coaching than being an athlete. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stick to the coaching for sure, and I'm gonna try out this content thing. And I'm pretty happy I've stuck with the content thing because it's ultimately led us to doing this now. And what I like about the athlete side is like you get to be selfish. It's so nice. You get to like prioritize everything towards competitions and like your health. So I definitely was like the peak healthy when I was focused on myself as an athlete, and maybe I was coaching, but like very part-time. And then like coaching's just rewarding, dude. It can be adults or kids, but it's just like super gratifying to give people stuff that you see them like apply, you know, you see people hitting moves, like sometimes immediately, sometimes like years down the line where it's like, oh dude, I saw you hit that thing. I remember when
You've
we
seen
went
that with
over
me
that
multiple times.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's pretty like instantly rewarding to be a coach because like jiu-jitsu, it helps people in so many different ways that like I see people, you know, either go from getting submitted all the time to starting to submit people, or just sometimes they're like, lose weight, change their posture, you know,
See the confidence.
That definitely happens. And not getting too like wishy-washy about that or whatever, but it is cool. You do see people grow in confidence as they learn how to, you know, do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I mean, you have coached so much. I have not, but I have taught some people some things, like small things, like this is a certain escape or this is a certain sweep, you know? and then like I see them hit it, or they come back to me saying that they remember this thing and they hit it on,
Yeah.
you know, so and at some point, and even just that small piece experience is super gratifying, and I feel like I can see like you wanting to keep doing
Yeah,
that, you
dude,
know, over and
that's
over. That's
totally what's
fucking
kept me
sick.
hooked the whole time is like
Yeah,
you could be having a shitty day and then you go coach somebody through something and then you're like, oh, gee, that was sick.
yeah,
Because like I can especially tell on like cornering people where like if you leave someone hanging who's like competing and they don't have like a corner and then like they do have a corner, you can see a difference. Like it can help. It can make a negative effect as well. But
fuck it.
I love setting up the white belt death matches and then just like picking one and like helping them a ton.
Hell
And then like once they start like getting the better of the other one, they're like, all right, now I'm
Switching.
gonna shift
Yeah.
and help the other guy. And then you can see like whoever's
Wait,
getting
wait.
coached more is like doing better. You know?
Talking about cornering, I've only competed twice. My first time competing, you were cornering me, and that was sick, right? Had a great time. I feel like I take direction very well, you know, and like I can single out your voice and, you know, follow it for the most part. The second time I competed, Andrew was cornering me, and it was it was good, right? It was good, but it was also, and I know other people will back me on this. Shout out if you've ever had Andrew Tackett corner you in a comp and had a similar experience. But but he was like, say we're standing up, right? We're playing the hand fight, you know, a wrestle game. He's like, all right, you gotta commit, you know. He's like, you gotta shoot for something, you know. You gotta shoot for something. And then like I shoot and I go for something. He's like, I mean, I wouldn't pick that, you know. Like I would, you know, maybe, you know, something else, you know, something better. But I was like, fuck, man, god damn it.
He's just like roasting you.
Yeah, I'm
He's
like, god damn,
dude,
bro.
help me out a little bit, please. That's so funny.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good time. I had Jesus Christ. I had another one. How do you deal with a training partner who goes 110% every round? Yeah, I feel like it's just communicate. I always I want to know what you think, but I always open up a round with, do you have any issues? Do you have any injuries?
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't want to reinforce another shitty piece of your parts that you already have. You know what I mean? And we're here to train. We're here to have fun. But I feel like it's just communication, you know? Like with some people, if I typically have hard rounds, it's like, I ask people too, what kind of round do you want? You know, like, are you trying to go hard, have heavy cardio, heavy, you know, like go? Are you trying to bang right now? Or are you play, you know, are you moving? How you feeling, you know? And I generally just adapt to that. So
I think like if you have a partner that's going like 110 and you want to roll with them and like you feel like they're still like a safe training partner, just make sure you're ready, because I have plenty of people that I know it's going to be like that. And when I'm either injured or just like not warmed up properly or whatever, I just won't roll with those people.
Yeah.
Because I know if I'm going to go with them, it's going to turn into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love training with them, but I can only do it kind of under like circumstances where it's like makes sense for me, you know? If they're going 110 and you're getting hurt, you definitely need to communicate that to them and, you know, either see if you can convince them to kind of calm down, or just, you know, again, just like not roll with them. But I will say, like, on that specific thing, with the amount of hours and rolls I've done, like, I will definitely, when I feel that with people, I'll either just match it if I'm in a circumstance where like I can do that. But a lot of the times, I'll not play possum, but just kind of like tone myself down.
I will
enough.
Yeah.
And like I've used Andrew as this example, and I think we talked about it on here, where when that happens to Andrew Tackett, he just lets you get the sub. Like if you're like getting that almost like jittery energy, and like he can tell like, oh, this guy really wants to sub me, he just lets you sub him, and then he's like, great job. And then they have to sit there going like, well, I wanted to sub you, but like I wanted to earn it.
Right.
And then now you're like,
Yeah.
I didn't earn that. He let me do that. Oh, I'm being kind of hyper aggressive right now, you know? And you don't even have to let people submit you to do that. But like sometimes I'll try with like my intensity to show them like, I'm just not doing that right now. But I'm still human. And sometimes when people come at me 110, it pisses me off. And I'm like, all right, dude, we're fucking scrapping now, you know? So I think the biggest thing that I've been able to do to avoid injuries is just like, if I, especially when I know someone and it's like not a stranger, I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to roll right now.
Yeah.
Or just be extremely clear. Hey man, normally we scrap really hard. I'm not feeling that today. If you want to roll, we can either do specific training or can you tone it down? You know, but I don't really seem like that comes up too much. I do use specific training for that a lot, where it's like, you know, I just feel like specific training helps create like less pressure because, you know, say if I'm someone that's like evenly matched, if I go into specific training, it's like, cool, you can beat me here. I asked for specific training. I obviously need to work on this skill, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that this is more of like an injury thing, but the amount of training I've been able to get in while injured is a ton because I will find, dependent on the injury, what specific training I can do. I think it had to have been 2020. Andrew broke one of my ankles, and it wasn't like fractured, but like it popped really bad on a toe hold and folded, and I couldn't. It was like called a sprained ankle, right? But it was really bad, and for about 6 weeks I couldn't walk comfortably, and I couldn't like run, and I couldn't do takedowns. But I just did EBI specific training, but with them on my back only because I couldn't use it as a hook, so I could only do the front side of EBI training. And I grew so much in that time, whereas like I could have just stopped training. But I figured out what I could do, you know? And some of those partners were going 110 and I was just getting fucking choked out. But I was like, all right, eventually.
But you can,
with time, I can maybe survive or, you know, last longer between submissions or something like that.
I try to tell people that too. Like if you're injured, I mean, obviously depending on the injury, right? If you can work around it, there's definitely things you can do to still get better in other aspects.
Yeah.
You know, like
I feel like the people that go only hard and then they get hurt, they don't train at all. And then they like come back from their injury and then only go hard and then keep getting hurt like in like a cycle like that. Yeah. It's like, dude, learn how to either train through your injury or like train at a pace where you're not getting hurt all the time. Bro. You know?
Chill. I pulled my hamstring really bad in school. And this was back when I was like pre-jiu-jitsu. I was hooping every day, like basketball first love type shit. And I was going and I couldn't do my normal runs. You know, I couldn't do like 5-on-5 runs. So I would just be a little sad boy by myself on a basketball court underneath a hoop working like offhand layups, you know. And I'm a lefty, so my right hand's ass. But I was going and I was getting it. And then whenever I healed up, I was, oh man, going. I was fucking nasty.
Yeah, you got a new skill.
I was nice. Yeah. Shit was nice. Is cardio actually king, or is technique king? Cardio?
I mean, that's like
I vote technique.
That's like an unfair kind of question, though.
Because I feel like,
go ahead.
I feel like I have above average cardio.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't matter if I don't have the freedom to exercise it.
For sure.
You know, and I'm just like fucking pinned and getting crushed.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like it takes a level of technique.
It's not like that black and white, right? Because we don't really exist where it's just like those two things being at play here. Sure. But I would agree, you definitely have great cardio.
Even
if I were to say the same thing for myself,
I didn't. Piece of shit.
For me, like, I would say the same thing on the technical side. I got this compliment the other day that I don't think it was a compliment. Mm-hmm. Oh, Davis, he's technical. And it was kind of like, it didn't have anything to do with cardio. It was more on like intensity and strength and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
You
I've
can
been
do that with everything though, right? It's like,
I've-
oh, he's strong.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. But in my personal experience as maybe a more technical person, I've run into the problems from the cardio. And that's why like almost for a year now, a little under that, I've been working on it so much. And I haven't competed yet, but within that year in the gym, I've seen just like a massive change in actively working on my cardio to complement the technique.
Mhm.
Because for me, yeah, I can have all the technique in the world, but if I don't have the output to match it, it's useless. And like it'll work for a certain amount of time, and then once that like
Your endurance bar.
yeah, once it hits a certain point, then like I don't care how technical you are if you can't keep moving.
Yeah.
So
Do you have favorite, or I guess not really favorite, but a cardio workout that you like to use?
I think the best thing for combat sports besides sprinting would probably be like the fan bike.
Okay.
Pretty universally solid.
I was
move.
gonna say EMOMs.
EMOMs
I thought you were gonna
too.
say EMOMs.
EMOMs are good. I think the problem with EMOMs is like selling them to people. It's not
What?
like people don't want to do that shit. So
People
I think
don't want to do anything, bro.
fair, but the fan bike's just good because you get push, you get pull, you get pump your legs up. To me it hits in a similar way to doing jiu-jitsu, particularly like sprints or just keeping a high RPM on it for a while. I think that on the fan bike you'll get significant cardio gains if you do it consistently and push yourself.
I'd rather do EMOMs than
I think that's like
bike.
the longer term one where like if you're consistently doing EMOMs over time, you'll build up like really good core strength and in general endurance. But if I were to go into a camp, I would do EMOMs in addition to the fan bike, and the fan bike is where I feel like I could really get that kind of acid bath. Whereas like the EMOMs, I think it's a lot harder to do like the acid bath kind of idea.
I don't know. They both suck.
Here, I got another one. Do I think BJJ has peaked in popularity? What's next for the community?
High rocks.
When I got asked this question, the second part, what's next for the community, I probably would have had a bunch of different ideas. But right now, what's next is what I was saying earlier of like, we got to completely redo who is the popular people in the sport that people look up to, who are the coaches that people should admire, and create a community that is safe for people, because clearly it has not been for some time. And I think there's plenty of great places and safe places, but there's some serious problems with the sport. So what's next is like adding the safe sport is just a small example, but that focus of, calling
I feel like
people
that would
out,
be great.
call people out on their shit. You see something, you say something, getting rid of this concept that you should put up with super shitty people because they're so good, and just saying, nah, I don't care how good you are. I'm not going to work with you. I'm not going to hire you for my event. I'm not going to have you in my affiliation, whatever it may be. On the peak of the popularity, I think it's tough because I think jiu-jitsu is one of those things that like once you do it a little bit, like you're always kind of in it, even if like you stop rolling and you don't have like a gym membership or anything. And like all those blue belts that have quit, I still kind of think of them as like being in the sport to some degree, right? So overall, it's probably only going to continue to grow for now, probably for the foreseeable future. So the peak, in some ways, there's more practitioners every day. But on the popularity side, on like the sport being fun to watch and growing maybe at like a certain pace, I think that peak was probably like CJI 1 ADCC 2024, because you had the $1 million matchups, you had Andrew and Cade's biggest match, you still had an ADCC that year, you had a big shift in the sport for the sake of like getting athletes paid, right? So I think people like that, right? Like people like knowing that LeBron James gets a cajillion dollars a year to play basketball. Like they don't care that he makes a ton of money to do it. They like it. I don't think people would want to watch it as much if he got paid less, So I think like paying the athletes the big paydays that year was what brought in so much extra attention. And so there's probably still going to be more practitioners year over year for ever. But like the viewership of live events is probably a little bit lower right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of events happening and stuff, but I think that there was probably more eyes on jiu-jitsu the weekend of CJI1 and ADCC 2024 than there has been in 2025 on like a single weekend kind of thing. So I'd put that at definitely at a peak. I'm sure we'll reach other ones. But it's definitely grown a ton. I mean, I feel like with like the average everyday person now, they know what jiu-jitsu is. Like you found out about jiu-jitsu and got yourself into it in like what 2021ish, 2020ish, something like that.
Yeah.
But like even when I was in college, 2015 to 2019, people didn't even know what it was. Like if I told people I did jujitsu, they were like, "Oh, cool. So like you're like a karate guy," and they like had that
Karate
kind of view of
nerd.
it. Whereas like the growth of the nogi, especially, I think people really understand like it's like a submission grappling thing that's kind of like wrestling.
Yeah.
So it kind of has its own, um,
Lore.
yeah, and just people know what it is. Like for my whole life up until 2020 ish, when I told people what I did, they had no idea. Most people outside of like the niche didn't know what it was. Now I could meet people at a restaurant or wherever in public and say, "Oh, I teach jujitsu." And like, "Oh, that's cool. I know what that is." You
Yeah.
know, so that's definitely shown that it's way more popular than when I started.
You were talking about all the blue belts that quit. All right.
Mm-hmm.
R.I.P. Um, how how do you? I made it.
Yeah, you
I
did.
made it. We
Yeah.
out here, boys.
Now you can just quit warm ups.
Let's fucking go. How do you keep? How do you retain people? You know, how do you prevent blue belts from quitting? How do you prevent white belts from training for 3 months and then bouncing or something?
I think that there's the business incentive of retention, right? So there's different models. So if your business model is focused on getting people in the door every day, you don't
It's
really
just
need as much
numbers.
retention. So
Yeah.
there's gyms that's kind of their focus is hitting advertising hard and getting themselves to the top of Google lists so that when you do find out about jiu-jitsu and you look it up, like they're the one that you're seeing when you type it in. Low retention rate, high turnover of people signing up and then leaving. So I just don't enjoy doing that. I don't have any problem teaching beginners and people that are starting out, but I like to have people that stick with it. So I think the common blue belt quitting thing is because people start the sport with the plan of getting to the blue belt, and then that's just kind of their goal. And in different places, that can be easier or harder to get to. But what I do to that I think might help is explain like maybe maybe it helps that like blue belt doesn't mean shit. Okay, like why would you even set that for your goal in the first place? Because like if you convince yourself that like, oh, I just need to get to a blue belt and I'll be pretty good. And like I remember being in that same position when I was in high school. It's like, man, once I'm a blue belt, like I'll be pretty good. And I got there and I realized like, oh fuck, I do still suck.
Snotty told me that if you're a blue belt, you're still retarded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was corrected the other day that blue belts suck.
Yeah.
So that's mostly true. But specifically, what I do to try to help that is lay out where your focus should be over time. And like with how I think of it in the most general form is like your white belt, you just got to learn how to survive. Your blue belt, you start getting better at getting out of shit. Purple belt, you start putting everything together. And then brown and black, you can have like much more specific focuses of developing your skills because you have enough foundational skills to really dig into stuff. So I was just talking about it this morning. Like the the white belt phase is so hard, and I think it is pretty rewarding to get to blue belt. So that may be like your first real sign of getting some kind of like satisfaction out of it. but then it's like not as satisfying as you thought. So you're like, all right, I'm over it. So I think things that help is like changing your perspective of what success looks like at white belt.
Yeah.
And that way, by the time you continue to develop, you can like see that in the future, you're eventually going to be like what you thought you'd be at blue belt, you know, which is realistically probably going to be closer to like black belt at some time after you already have your black belt, maybe at brown belt if you're pretty good. Where like, I literally encourage the white belts, like, man, just become super hard to submit. Because if you can take people that have been submitting you and you get through a round without getting submitted, take that as the win instead of telling yourself that like this is jiu-jitsu is about submission. I should be submitting people. And if I'm not submitting other people, then I'm like, I suck, you know, because I think it's already just so frustrating to roll. And then like when you're at the beginning and even if you're going against other white belts, you still might be getting submitted. But if you shift the goal from like winning to being like stubbornly hard to submit, then you can like have someone who just beat the crap out of you and scored a bunch of points and then be like, no, he didn't submit me. So I got something out of this.
Any white belts that come to mind that are like that?
Oh God, dude, Nick Loera that came on here is the hardest white belt in the world to submit. He certainly has achieved that phase of like, I'm getting like solid athletes in the gym to be like, hey man, how do I choke this guy?
Yeah.
Like, good luck. He's got no neck.
No neck Nick.
No neck Nick, dude. Super tough guy.
Vibes too. Vibes when he was
Yeah.
white belt. He was tough too.
But there's, on like the blue belt tangent, there's like the blue belt divorce that I've joked about a bunch.
What is that? Just blue belts.
It's like, say if you're like already married when you start and then you become obsessed with this activity and all you want to do is train and maybe you like obsessively want to compete or something.
Oh shit, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. So like if you can imagine, and this is just a joke, this isn't actually what's going to happen, but it's happened enough.
It will happen.
It's happened enough that it's like a funny thing to me where your values change, you know, your priorities change, and you know what you want to do with your time shifts so much that I've seen it ruin relationships because people become so obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. So that's just like a funny thing to see where people prioritize jiu-jitsu over their relationships and fuck up their own lives, which definitely can happen. So I guess those people, I would say, probably aren't like the blue belt quitters. That would be crazy work to be like the one who like becomes so obsessed with jiu-jitsu to get a blue belt and then like ruin your life and then also quit it. Like that would be crazy. Those people generally actually stick with it. But kind of to the same point of like the confidence changes and weight loss and stuff. Sometimes people from white to blue belt transform so much that for whatever reason, their life is a lot different after 2-3 years of training.
Yeah. On confidence, one of these questions is, how do you get confident when you're always the worst person in the room?
Like I just said, you minimize the damage, cut the bleeding, you know? Yeah. It's like, I literally do that to other people I train with. Like, I'm a black belt, but like, dude, there's so many people that if I just get submitted like once in a row, I'm like, fuck yeah, dub. Because they're so much better than me, you know? So like, obviously it's very hard to measure your success. And I mean, it's even worse if you're the newest, smallest, weakest. Like that's like the, you know, tripling down on making your life very difficult on the mat. But you just have to compare yourself to where like you were at, you know, like imagine if you got to do a match against like the white belt Juico that went and got that like strangle in 30 seconds.
Fucked up.
Like that dude was badass and a bunch of people talk shit on the comment section and stuff about you being like a black belt or whatever. But like you would demolish white belt you.
I would fuck him up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It would be
so it's
sick,
like the same thing as that, where it's like stop comparing yourself to the people that are in the room with you because like if they've been there longer, they should be better than you. If they're bigger than you, then like size and strength matters. So
for sure.
You know, just make sure that you're able to kick your own ass from 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly my answer too. Because I am very often like that's me, you know, in those comp sessions, like at 9 a.m., you know, and I'm cool with it. You know, I feel like that's me being in the right room as long as I'm welcome, you know, and I'm not like bringing the room down, you know, in a way that prevents people from getting good work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, dude, you're probably not even the worst guy in the room most situations, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So Yeah, I think that's good, man.
Well, sick.
Where are we?
All right. Well, thanks so much for watching. Comment down below what you think is kind of the next move for jiu-jitsu. Let us know if what you think of my take on what's been going on in the sport kind of since its creation.
Yeah.
I want to do another one of these at some point, looking into like the more full history of jiu-jitsu, just to understand, because I kind of just started like when I started in 2009, and I'd like to get like a better picture of the entire growth of the sport. And I'm not just trying to focus on the bad here, but this is a issue that I felt like we should talk about. I've had my own personal experiences with it, and I just care so much about the sport that when these kind of things come up, it makes me really frustrated, really sad, where just wasn't sure how I wanted to approach it. But I know the right thing to do is to help create more safe environments for everybody that wants to train, and you know, do what we can to get rid of all these shitty people and help make it better for like the kids and people in the future.
Everybody. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for watching, and we'll be back soon with another episode.
Cool. Peace out. Game plan. Sick.
What'd we do?